Mr. Weber, follow me, please. Mr. Weber, well, take a seat, please.
Thank you.
Now you have arrived here already. Even somewhat sooner than you planned.
So, well, may I... Are you God?
No, I am not God. My job is to check out where you will go.
What do you mean?
You noticed the two doors earlier. One of these doors will open for you. We will now have to clarify where you will spend eternity.
Definitely in this wonderful country. Don't want to go to that hole.
That's what everybody says here.
But that shouldn't be a problem in my case. I've been christened. I give regularly to the church, and sometimes I even give money to charities. And besides that, I always try to live a decent life. Or at least I've tried to, anyway. You know that principle. Do right and fear nobody.
That's why you're here, Mr. Weber. We will see what we can do.
What do I have to do in order to get in?
You need 6,000 points.
6,000 points? Well, how do I get them?
By doing good deeds, for example. A perfect life, good morals, you know that.
Okay, I should be all right then. I really have not been a bad person. But I'm sure you are aware of that up here. I've never murdered anybody in my entire life. Never stolen. I've tried to be good to my neighbors and fellow men. I even went to church regularly.
Well...
Or well, nearly regularly.
Hold on, please. We'll have to record that and then add up the points.
Okay. Shall I start, or will you ask questions?
You can just go ahead.
Well, that's not so easy. Normally, one doesn't keep a notebook of all the good things that one does.
We do. So please don't worry about that.
Yeah. So maybe let's start with my wife. I've always treated her well, never hit her. She never had to plead for money. I've worked extra hard in my job so that she could live the luxurious life she liked. 60 hours a week. Finally, there's also my daughter. She turned out to be a very nice and decent girl. What are you doing there? Only one single point? And what about all those sleepless nights we stayed up when she was ill? All the worrying we did because of her? You really ought to know about all this.
The sleepless nights are, as far as I know, on your wife's account. We will regard the rest separately.
Let's carry on then. I never dreamt that it would be this way. My mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was truly an evil woman, yet I've treated her always with respect. What? Come on, only 1 point? Don't you know how much that has cost me?
I do, but you should have loved her.
My mother-in-law? Now I begin to presume that you have no idea who my mother-in-law was. That's really mad. Should have loved her? How on earth could I have done that? I often helped out my neighbor.
One moment. Mr. Carson, you mean? According to our final records, you've been in dispute with him concerning a large tree.
Yes, of course. So how could I have lived peacefully with him? How many points have I got? Oh, I'm fed up with all this.
32.
What? 32? At this rate, I'll only make it to 50. But that's not fair. Just look at the human race. I'm not at all worse than all the others. Murderers and child molesters.
Mr. Weber, we look at your life, not that of other people.
Is there any way I can get more points? For example, let's try the 10 Commandments. All of them I've kept. Nearly.
Yes. Could get you a lot of points.
Well, first let's try thou shalt not steal. I always was honest. My brother, for example, he used to steal even as a little boy. But me, never.
What about your tax return? Completely honest?
But that's no sort of stealing, because everybody does it.
But Mr. Weber, just because everybody does it doesn't make it right. So, you have stolen from the government. But what was the situation with the car accident when you...
Well, that comes under stealing too. Okay, let's drop that. If you're so narrow-minded up here, we don't even need to mention that commandment about bearing false witness and lying. Of course, I had to use a little white lie every now and again, but I was always careful not to go too far. Good heavens, everybody does it.
That's no difference to us.
Let's take the next one. Thou shalt not kill. This I really know for certain. I did not violate that one. How many points is that?
Well, we will first have to check that out. Do you remember the words you used when the court verdict was read out in favor of your neighbor? The case of the tree, remember? You said, "I will wring this fellow's neck."
Just one of those phrases. The main thing is I didn't do it. That must count.
And how often did you calculate how much you would inherit from your seriously ill mother-in-law depending on her lifespan? Didn't you ask the doctor not to use life-prolonging measures?
But finally she died a natural death. Completely natural. You know I didn't kill her.
But Mr. Weber, the desire was in your heart concerning your mother-in-law, as well as your neighbor.
And if I committed adultery once, only once, will I get some points anyway? Although you know for sure that I've been faithful to my wife for 37 years, and that there was only once an unfortunate diminutive act of infidelity. Going after another woman, well, that's not the man I am.
You should know your thoughts best, Mr. Weber.
My thoughts? What doesn't one do in one's thoughts? But doesn't everybody? Damn it, really. I've never gone bad. I was a pretty average guy. You can't be so pedantic up here.
But Mr. Weber, we have a very acute sense of justice here. How often did you cry out for God that He should show His justice someday? Well, here it is. God made it very clear to everyone that there will be judgment in the end. And you have been aware of that, I think.
Of course. But I never imagined that I was that bad to be found guilty. But didn't God send His Son to earth for the sinner's salvation? Doesn't it say somewhere in the Bible that whosoever believes in Jesus Christ shall have eternal life?
Right? You're well informed, Mr. Weber. But be honest. You didn't really believe in him.
I never disputed his existence.
Okay then. Let me put it this way. You didn't trust him. The life and the death of Jesus Christ was of no significance to you. You wanted to get into heaven through your own works. You never wanted to hear about the fact that God's Son paid for your sins with his life. Because then you would have to admit that you had accumulated many sins in your life. But in your own eyes, you were not so bad.
Yeah. But I also can't remember anybody warning me that things would be handled so strictly up here. Is there anything that can be done? I really wasn't as bad as some of the others.
Everything you have done has been recorded in these books. We can add up the points you gained. If you have reached 6,000, you have succeeded.
Oh, just leave that. But one thing I'll tell you, you don't seem to have any idea how things are in reality down there. How can anybody make it? Where do the people come from that have made it into heaven? I bet they deserve it just as little as me. Had enough cash to pay for the entry, did they?
You still haven't understood what I have been trying to tell you. These people received an entry ticket, that is true.
See, I was right.
But they didn't pay for it themselves. Nobody can pay that much. Only one. And that one has paid for everyone. There was a 6,000 points card for totally free. Whoever was willing to put his pride to one side and allow Jesus Christ to give him this card for free because he realized that he would never be able to reach the required amount of points was granted free entry. For eternity.
But why didn't anybody tell me? I would have done that straight away. I was completely misinformed. I thought you simply had to live a decent life. You remember my motto, do right and fear nobody. That's how I've always lived. Can't you make a single exception? No. No! Please don't go away. Where have you gone? I want to see my home. Please. Stay here. I don't want to go to that horrible place. Please, come back to me. What?
What's the matter, Carl?
What?
Have you had a bad dream?
What are you doing here? Bad dream. Oh. Yes. All was just a dream. Yes. Only a bad dream.
See you soon, Mr. Weber.
Yes. See you soon.